Hey gang, Diana here today. Welcome to the studio. I'm using some autumn colors to create a pumpkin painting, and I just wanted to show you what I'm using and how I'm doing that. I'm using a watercolor block, but which is gum sealed on all sides except for enough to get a palette knife in to separate it. It's a nice way to work, but you could use any kind of paper or canvas or do this in your art journal. I have some colors I've chosen from the Gelatos line, and I will list them below the video. And I have them just sitting in a cup, juicing up. And I have my favorite brushes out. These are the Escoda Versatile brushes, and I find them to be really nice. They are, I think they're part synthetic and part natural. I also have a couple of Japanese brushes in there. I'll link everything below. As it turned out, I wound up gessoing the surface just because I really like the way that the gelatos move on a gessoed surface. So as you can see, it really doesn't matter what kind of paper you use, as long as it's relatively heavy. And I also have out some of my Pitt pen markers. I like these markers because they are waterproof and India ink, and they just are beautiful colors and work beautifully. So now I am running through my colors that I chose. And once again, I'll list these colors below. They are Iced Current, Odyssey from the Iridescent section, Mango, Iced Rose, Nebula, Iridescent, Galaxy, Iridescent, Raspberry, Strawberry, and Squid Ink. So that was the colors I chose, and you can see how they're mixing together here. So just showing you that I did gesso that page using a not so great brush. Don't use your best watercolor brushes to gesso. And I'm just drawing these really super simple pumpkin shapes. They're basically circles and, with the stem. They're pretty easy to use. I didn't think too much about it. You can look at references, and just making a composition of three. I'm indicating that I like to sort of turn the forms a little bit, like the shape of the pumpkin. The one on the right is leaning a little bit to the left. The one on the left is leaning a little bit to the right. It just creates a little bit of movement in your composition, which I love to put some movement in there. And I'm sort of erasing things and keeping it light and taking out any errors and fussing around with the shapes a little bit. You can do that too. Again, a pencil and an eraser on a gessoed surface works really well. And here I'm going in. I'm starting to lay in the color, and I'm just keeping this super simple, just by sort of putting that orange color all over the place and then coming in with my wet brush and turning the gelatos into a sort of watercolor. Some of these are those iridescents, so the original painting is really so cool with the iridescent colors. I love that packet of colors, and just pushing things around a little bit. Nothing too outrageous happening here, as you can see. Picking up, laying in wet water onto an area that might have gotten too much color on it, and then picking it up with my rag. I love the color this pumpkin turned out. It just seems to glow, and that was maybe the iced currant and the orange. A lot of these colors just are magical together. I love them. Okay, close up there, you can see how I stroked one color right next to the other. Sort of quick stroked and then picked up another color and just melting that color together. You might notice that the bottom of the pumpkins have a more deeper color, more color in them than the tops. That's because I want there to be a darkness at the bottom and feel like a lighter area at the top, but not worrying too much about lights and darks at this moment. I'll be using some of the squid ink and markers to deepen those colors a little bit. Notice that line at the top. It's like a white line between the top left side of the pumpkin, the front pumpkin, and the back pumpkin. I'm leaving that because I want there to be a separation between those two pumpkins, and I'm not sure where I'm going to go with it yet, but I wanted it to stay clean and clear until I decided what it should be. And following the form with my brush, so sweeping that brush down and sort of following the pumpkin, like where the grooves would be in the pumpkin, adds a lot to the possibilities of creating form. So here I am, sorry for too close up, but I'm beginning to add that golden color into that far right. And again, trying to, because the pumpkins are still wet, I don't want to cross-contaminate them. I don't want the color from that right pumpkin to bleed into the left pumpkin. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. You know how watercolors, the wet edges will bleed into each other, and that's a beautiful edge. And I do use that later on in this painting, that lost and found edges, as we call them. Okay, so sorry, my camera I forgot to turn it on or something, but here I am with zoomed out, and you can see I'm adding some pencil in now to those groove areas of the pumpkins again. All I did for the purple and the green background was the same technique I've used this a lot of times, where you color in the gelato, and then big loaded brush of water and let it drip down. And I actually turned the paper upside down for the top area and used the green and turned it upside down, let it drip down again. Okay, so back with, I think, the squid ink, and maybe that's Nebula. I'll list below. You can sort of see if, and then I'm adding some darks. I'm just dropping in darks, so you don't need to worry too much about this. I just want to create some shadow areas in, I'm trying to, yeah, I think that's purple I'm using. It's one of the iridescents, and I'm just strengthening that background a little bit, and adding some more, picking up some of that color. It's nice to have the color travel around the canvas a little bit if you can swing that. Here's the completed painting, and yeah, I did lose the footage. I've been having some camera issues lately, but you can see I used those white areas. I used the white Faber-Castell marker, the Pitt pen, and that worked so well. I used the greens to color in the pumpkin stems, and I also added some greens into the pumpkin itself and used Pitt pens to establish those groove places. And you can see all the messing around I did, and the shadow on the left hand side between the right pumpkin and the back left pumpkin to really push that pumpkin into the back area. Gosh, I love those colors in that forward pumpkin. That was iced currant and the orange. And now closer to the bottom of the painting, you can see where I used Pitt pens. I love the gray Pitt pens. If that was all I had, could afford, that's what I would buy, is all the gray shades. And because they're perfect for doing this kind of shadow work and just messing around. I kept my touch light and loose, but that does take some practice. So try to keep it light and loose and practice at that. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for spending some time with me today. Don't forget to leave a comment. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and subscribe. And I'll be back soon. Thanks so much. Bye.